If you are remotely interested in reducing your food waste, you probably know that you can use your food scraps as food for worms in a vermicomposting system or just in a regular compost pile. Veggie and fruit scraps are a great nitrogen source that can balance your carbons in a compost pile, but they don't last long and are hard to gather enough of to really make much of a dent in your nitrogen needs. Unless, that is, if you preserve them through fermentation. And that's where Bokashi comes in. Bokashi is a Japanese word that means fermented organic matter, and it's been used since the 1980s to store kitchen waste that could otherwise be used to create garden fertility. Now you may hear that I'm saying you should go through a whole extra process of preserving waste products and think, well, that's not really worth my time, but it actually may be more worth your time than you think. Unlike plain old food scraps, fermented food scraps are packed with diverse beneficial microbes that will give your compost or your soil a boost and help your plants thrive. When you ferment your food scraps, you're killing two birds with one stone. You're eliminating a waste stream and you're creating fertility for your garden. And we're always looking for ways to bring diversity and microbial activity to the garden, so fermented food scraps are a must for us. You can also Bokashi ferment plant debris like comfrey leaves and grass clippings if you're trying to preserve their high nitrogen content after you've picked them. This way they don't dry out and lose their nutrients that could otherwise be added to your compost, which will end up feeding your garden soil. Another huge reason for Bokashi fermentation, and perhaps the main reason that we appreciate it so much, is that you can ferment any food waste, including meat, dairy, eggs, and cooked food. Basically anything is fair game as long as it's not super moldy. Because you're fermenting it before composting it, the decomposition process goes really fast once it's in a compost pile or even in the soil. Even small bones will decompose quickly, although we find that it's best to make sure that these get a full ferment before trying to compost them. Using Bokashi composting, we have cut down our food waste to literally zero. None of our food waste goes in the garbage. It all eventually makes its way back into our garden, and that makes us really happy. Here's how it works. You will need a Bokashi bucket system. These can be really easily made with 2 5-gallon buckets. Just drill holes in the bottom of one of them so that the moisture can drain out. Or you can buy one like the one that we have. You also need a tamper of some kind to press down the food scraps. And then you'll need the Bokashi grains. This is the brand that has been inoculated with microbes called EM1, Effective Microbes 1. And these are lactic acid bacteria, beneficial yeast strains, and photosynthetic bacteria. These microbes are just going to feed on your food scraps and establish a culture that keeps the food from rotting. The last thing that you need is your food scraps. Once you have these things, the method is simple. You will put a layer of food scraps down at the bottom of the bucket, and then you'll cover it with the Bokashi brand, mix it up, tamp it down, and repeat the process with your other food scraps. You're going to add enough Bokashi brand that every piece of food has some on it. Don't be stingy with it. About a handful per layer usually does the trick for us. Make sure to really tamp it down too so that it all sticks together, because this is an anaerobic fermentation, meaning that you don't want a lot of air pockets throughout the container. If you're wondering if it's gone bad at any point, the best way to tell is just by looking at it. If you see a white mold on the top of it, that's probably fine. It's a natural part of the culture. If, however, you see odd colors or like a lot of black or blue, dark red mold, you may not have added enough Bokashi brand, and that bucket probably won't ferment correctly. Another way you can tell if your Bokashi is still good is through the smell. This one you'll sort of have to get used to it. To me, the smell is a bit sweet or pickly in its scent. If it smells putrid or it's putting off a really odd, intense odor, it probably means that something's gone wrong. That said, the normal smell can be a little bit different if you're not used to it, so don't worry if you smell a strong, sweet, pickled smell. You can keep adding food scraps to your bucket day to day, or every few days, or once a week, until the bucket's full. And at this point, you're going to want to let it sit and ferment for at least 2 full weeks before using it anywhere. Once the 2 weeks are up, all the food scraps should be properly fermented. And you can either bury the contents of the bucket directly into your soil, or you can use it as a nitrogen source for your compost pile. And just check out our video on hot composting for more info on that. If you're burying it in the garden, we recommend giving it at least a month to decompose in the soil. So don't put it anywhere where you're going to plant something in a few days. Try to bury it well in advance. This Bokashi pre-compost will add a lot of good organic matter and microbes to your soil. So this is a great way to use it. We typically use it in our compost pile though. Another way you can use bokashi is as worm food. Surprisingly, the bokashi culture is not too acidic for worms, and they seem to love the cultured food. And that's bokashi. We love using this method to cut down our food waste to nothing. We really hope that you will try it as well. We'll leave links in the description of the buckets and the Bokashi brand that we use. And if you have any questions or suggestions, we would love to hear those in the comments. So please drop one and give our video a like if you enjoyed it. Also, as always, go ahead and subscribe to our channel so you can get more helpful gardening and sustainability tips in the future. Thanks for watching.